Charles Barkley, our friend from TNT, soon to be ESPN. Will we still say TNT or do we say ESPN starting next year, Charles? How do we do that?
Great question. Hey, do you three have vasectomies, by the way?
I do.
I do not, Charles. Now I am done, but my wife took care of that part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I have no idea. I heard we got traded to ESPN, ABC, so I know there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and they're trying to figure that out. I wish I could give you a good answer, but I don't know the answer to it.
We do know their money spends, though,
That's right? It's green, Charles. It is green.
Other people got money too.
I would say this, though. If it ends up being that way and it's still produced in Atlanta like the reports suggest, that seems like the situation you were hoping for, because you always talked about the production people in Atlanta that have been part of that show for a long, long time.
Yeah, my biggest concern was the people in Atlanta keeping their job. Jim, I've been with these guys for 25 years. They're like my family. And I got to admit, this was an eye-opening experience for me because I've been so lucky and blessed in my life, meeting with people who are talking about not having a job, who got a wife, got kids, got mortgages and things like that. It was so foreign to me because I've never had to worry about not being able to pay my bills. But it's been a real good learning, humbling experience for me because I'm like, oh, man. I'm with grown men who have got tears in their eyes talking about they're not going to be able to pay their bills and things now. So it's been a great learning experience for me. I will be honest with you.
All right, let's talk about some of the sports. And we know whatever you do, you're going to be successful. We don't care what we call you, just as long as we still call you. Charles Barkley with us. That was kind of a cheesy line there. That was more of a Dunaway line there, Charles. I am so sorry.
Oh, because it was bad. It was one of my lines.
Yeah, that's right.
We want to talk basketball with you, Charles. I'll save him here.
No, I got you.
I thought it was a signature win last night for Duke, beating Auburn, and that's saying a lot. It's a signature win for Duke that they beat Auburn last night.
Yeah, I watched the entire game. Auburn's got a better team than Duke. They didn't play great last night, in my opinion. They had too many turnovers. They didn't play with a lot of discipline. I think Bruce will clean that up. When you're watching that game, you're like, man, Auburn's really good. I mean, I knew that already after Maui. But because when they got down in the second half about double digits, I was like, uh-oh, I want to see if they're going to crack. They didn't crack. That was a good loss. I know there's no such thing as moral victories, but there are when you actually paying attention. You're like, man, Auburn's really good, because that was a really tough environment. Duke was really ready. It was national television. Everybody was watching. So I thought it was a good loss. But when I was watching that game, I was saying to myself, man, Auburn's got a better team than Duke. That's what I got away from that game last night.
So, Chuck, Janai Broome he's Janai Broome. The guy gets better and better. The Maui.
He did not play good last night. He didn't play good last night.
I was going to ask you, though, at 6'10", there's a ton of 6'10" guys in the NBA. There's a reason he's back at Auburn this year, and that's good for Auburn. Moving forward next year, where do you see him, though? Do you think he plays in the NBA?
I think he's going to get a good opportunity. He didn't have a good game last night. He played great in Maui. I thought he made too many turnovers last night. There was like 3 crucial plays in that game where he got layups, and for some reason he wanted to try to take them off the dribble and end up kicking it out of bounds. So I thought that was huge. They couldn't stop him down low, but for some reason he's like, and be honest with you, Lance, I thought he was trying to prove like, I can play in the NBA. I can take guys off the dribble. That's not his strong suit. His strong suit is in the post, being physical, being aggressive. But I hope the kid makes it in the NBA because, it'd be great for Auburn. We've had some great success lately with guys coming out of Auburn. But he going to get an opportunity. That's all I can promise you, Lance.
I think the way Chad Baker Mazara plays, 97% of the time it's so positive for Auburn, and it can really get under opponent's skin. And then there, not to bring up the Yale game, but last night, a little moment of that game there, as a guy who played the game, do you like the way he sort of gets under the opponent's skin, or do you wish he'd calm that down a little bit?
It's a combination of both, because anytime you play over on the edge, you're going to go over the edge, and you hopefully it bit them in the ass against Yale. So you want guys like a Dennis Rodman or a Draymond, guys who are good players who play on the edge. The problem with playing on the edge, you always go over the edge. You just hope it's not at the wrong time. And it was wrong against Yale. And last night it was real close. It was real close last night. I thought there were a couple times, number one, the play out of bounds play, and also when he jumped into the non-fight. So when you have a guy like that, he's great for your team, but you have to be really careful, Jim, because that's the thing about that sucks about the whole tournament. Like one mistake, the season's over. It's not like in the NBA where you can screw up one time and you still got to win 3 more games. It bit him against Yale, so he's great for our team, but Bruce has got to watch it, and he's going to have to really pay close attention, because if you live on the edge, man, not just in sports, in life, if you live on the edge, it's just a matter of time before you go off the cliff.
Charles Barkley, the great, is with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline, and there is no doubt you're an Auburn fan, but you love this state as well, and you've always praised Alabama when they deserve to be praised. To watch 4.5 hours last night of those games, and they're there because of where Nate Oates has this program and Bruce Pearl has this program. As a state of Alabama guy that loves basketball, had to make you pretty proud.
Well, actually, last year really made me proud, to be honest with you, because Auburn and Alabama were both great. Bucky over at Sanford did a fabulous job in terms. Andy Kennedy at UAB. To have 4 teams from a state in March Madness is quite an accomplishment. That's not even a good accomplishment. If somebody had told you guys going back, we're going to have 4 teams from Alabama in March Madness, you'd be like, are you kidding me? We might get 1. We might get 2. We had 4 teams in March Madness last year. It was really cool for me to watch him during the tournament and to have to study tapes on them and things. But to get back to your question, Alabama and Auburn both are quality Final Four teams. Obviously, we got a long way to go, but they're both legitimate Final Four teams. I do think Auburn's the best team in the country. I do think that, because they can beat you multiple ways. They can beat you big. They can beat you little. They can beat you with depth. And I've said this before. No coach in basketball makes more good in-the-game adjustment than Bruce Pearl. We're never going to get out-coached. He's a great X and O coach. If these kids listen to him, they got it all. I can't wait to see how this season's going to turn out.
For Alabama, they've got so many players, and unfortunately they're down Latrell Wrightsell for the rest of the year, but their rotation is so many parts. Bruce has always ran with a 9-10 person rotation. As you watched Alabama last night, is that something that Nate can lean into, having that many players? Or you've been on many teams. That dream team, for example, sharing the basketball isn't always easy. Do you like having that much depth in Tuscaloosa?
I do, because it's a long season, Jim, and injuries are going to happen. You just never know when. So you can't just toss guys out there and think like, okay, he didn't play in November, he didn't play in December, somebody sprains an ankle, let's put him out there now. No, you have to build your confidence and your camaraderie with your team. So you actually, what most coaches try to do, especially in NBA, you expand your roster during the regular season to get guys ready to play just in case. But when the playoffs really start, the rotation shrinks. That's when you should shrink your rotation. During the regular season, especially when you know you got a legitimate team that can go to the tournament, you should use your entire roster and rotation. But then when you get to just to make sure, just in case. And also you might find a diamond in the rough. You don't know who got better over the summer and things like that. But the main thing is you shorten your rotation because in the tournament it's one and done and you're playing against better teams. So the more players you play, Jim, the better.
So, Chuck, on the surface, looks like a great recruiting signing class yesterday for Hugh Freeze. I'm sure your wallet's a little lighter. But the first couple of years have not been good. 5-11 in conference, 11-14 overall, 4 consecutive losing years for Auburn football. Where are you right now on Hugh Freeze?
Well, I always root for whoever's coaching Auburn. I've said that. I've never badmouthed the Auburn coach. I'm really pulling hard for Coach Freeze. I think he's got a couple problems. I think number one, I was with one of my friends from Georgia last night. I'm like, there's 3 schools ahead of us already in the recruiting. And then there's 3 more SEC schools right behind us. So we're not going to get a big jump just from recruiting. But the biggest problem we got at Auburn is, man, we got to find a quarterback. And I don't think next year you could count on a freshman, even though I love the kid. I got a chance to meet him when I was down at the Oklahoma game. But I don't think we can go into the season thinking a freshman's going to come right out and we're going to be competitive with Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, schools like that. Because they already, Florida and Tennessee already got their quarterback. And I don't know about Georgia. I don't know about how things going to turn out in Tuscaloosa. But until you get your quarterback situation settled, you're not going to have a good college team or a good pro team. So I'm really pulling for Coach Freeze, but we're going to have the same issue. Like I say, we're not going to gain a lot recruiting because we're right. I think I saw the list. We're number 7. If I can remember, but 3 of the teams ahead of us already have better teams, but the teams right with us were like 7, 8, 9, and 10.
That's right.
Yeah. And 11.
And I'm like, so it looks good on paper, but those other teams recruited better or just as good. But the number one problem Coach Freeze got is, are we counting on that freshman next year to – I think there's too much pressure to put on a freshman, to be honest with you. So as much as I root for Coach Freeze, because I want Auburn to be successful, but, man, we're in the same boat. Unfortunately, I think we're in the same boat because we don't have a quarterback going into the next year.
Do you think Alabama gets in when it's all said and done? Like even if Clemson beats SMU, do you think they will drop SMU below Alabama?
You know, a couple of things I got to say about this. See, and we've had this conversation before. I hate strength of schedule. I hate that argument, okay?
All right.
Why is it my fault your team sucks? That really drives me crazy. It's like people used to give Alabama a hard time. They're like, well, they didn't play anybody. I'm like, well, they played the team. First of all, these schedules are made out 10 years in advance. And now you have to add Oklahoma and Texas. So that's the only thing. You add more good teams. But these schedules are made out 10 years in advance. So this notion that strength of schedule should matter, I have a problem with that. But I think Alabama's going to get in because of Alabama. And listen, we're in the money-making business on television. That's what we are. Now, because fans always think everything is rigged. It's not rigged, but we're trying to make money. And if I remember correctly, when I was looking at the brackets, Alabama against Notre Dame is a damn great game instead of SMU and Notre Dame. Like I say, I think I saw Alabama supposed to go to Notre Dame if the season ended like last week. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and some snowflakes there.
Yeah, and it's made for television. I mean, it's a money thing.
Yeah. That would be really good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that's going to be because who should be really pissed is South Carolina because they're playing as well as any team in the country, and they got 0 shot. And I'll tell you the truth, I leave Ohio State out. If you lose at home to a crappy Michigan team, your rival, at home, that's, I talked to you about the Auburn Duke game. That was a good loss for Auburn. That's Ohio State losing at home to Michigan. That's one of the worst. As a 20, first of all, I'm pissed because I had Ohio State. Let's get that out the way. But to lose, like, rivalry games are tricky, but to lose a game where you're a 3-touchdown favorite, that's really, really bad. And like I say, if I was in that room, I'm like, man, I'm gonna tell you something. All losses are not created equal. Losing at home to Michigan as a 3-touchdown favorite, that's probably as bad a loss as you can get, to be honest with you.
I know you're not on TikTok, but did you see what Bryson DeChambeau did for a series there? He has a putting green in his backyard, and in front of his house, he'd go out there, and on the first day, he'd have one shot to chip it over his house and try to get a hole in one. He got 2 shots on day 2, day 3, and I think it went to day 15 before he finally got the hole in one.
And his house is all glass,
And
Charles.
his house is all glass. How many times do you think you could chip over a house before you got a hole in one? And what would be the bill on the glass?
Let me tell you something. I'd have to keep working till I was 75 or 80 on broken windows. Jim, I actually did. That's a really cool thing he was doing. You know what? I wish, was he doing it in a charity aspect?
I don't know. I think he was probably just doing it to build followers, which he's got a ton of those.
Because that would be a great charity thing. That would be, like, I'm pretty sure he could get all his celebrity friends, and I consider Bryson a casual friend. If we would just put up a ton of money and raise some money for a good cause, that could be a really cool charity thing to do. But I would have a lot of broken windows if that was the case.
Yeah, I think here's the idea: we do it at charity, but Charles has to do it at Bryson's house with all the glass chuckers at Bryce's driveway.
Yeah, Bryce
hey,
might say
I'm gonna see him next week, because we're broadcasting the Bryson Brooks match against Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. I might bring that up to him because that would be a great charity thing to do. That would be a really cool charity thing.
Well, go ahead and pre-produce a tape. Go ahead and go out to his house and go ahead and get the cameras to record you taking a shot over his house and just blade one right in through the window.
Well, that's why we love you, Charles. We appreciate you coming on. You know we love you. And as always, thank you for the time.
Hey, man, I want to thank you guys for having me. Hope y'all doing great. Merry Christmas to everybody out there, and War Damn Eagle.
You bet. Merry Christmas to you, Charles. Thank you, buddy. We'll see you soon.
All right, brothers. Be safe.
All right, you too. Take care. Charles Barkley with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. It was about a year ago this week or so where he talks about charity a lot. He gave $100,000 right here on this show to our friends at Folds of Honor.
That's right.
Just an incredibly generous guy,
Yeah,
Charles.
and there's so many different charities he gives to that nobody knows about.
That's right. That one just happened to be public, and it was for $100,000. And by the way, I will tell you, because it's easy to say that and not follow through. We can tell you, and Charles doesn't need us to say this, he 100% followed through. That wasn't just window dressing. Folds of Honor contacted us like, man, we got the check. It is incredible, man. This is changing people's lives.